Hello and welcome. Another edition of Coach's Corner. And I want to remind everyone the Coach's Corner segments are now sponsored by Corvive, all things related to NSF certified supplements from protein, hydration products, energy products, creatine, all NSF certified, which means all of the ingredients are strict, stringent, passing not only NCAA but also professional sports, NFL, Major League Baseball. So Corvive, your link will be available in the description below. Today we're going to be talking with a coach that arguably is one of the top five younger coaches. I mean, I'm old, I'm 63, I'm dinosaur age. We're going to be talking about Messiah University and head coach Phill Shallenberger. And Phil, I first want to say thank you. I know it's a busy time of year with the fall, but I really appreciate you taking the time to join me today.
Absolutely. I appreciate everything you guys do and excited to have this conversation today.
You know, one of the interesting dynamics of college baseball now is really, we can go to Murray State, we can go to Division II teams like Southern New Hampshire, and now Division III at Messiah University. You know, all schools now are attracting talent, but what makes Messiah University an attractive option for a student athlete? In today's world of college baseball.
For sure, with Messiah, there's a relationship between this athletic excellence and developing Christian character, and they go hand in hand. So you're getting a great education here, and you're going to be able to compete at a high level athletically. I think there's around 40 plus national champions here since 2000, and a lot of schools can probably don't have one, and we have 40 plus of those across the board in all sports. But also just the integration of what our faith and our beliefs look like intertwined with that, and I do believe that's a lot of what drives our success is our ability not to be focused on the success, but we're just constantly being persistent and pursuing that excellence every day. So if you're looking for a faith-based school that's also going to compete at a high level athletically and academically, there's not many places like this across the country.
Are there any parameters or academic kind of criteria that the average? Is there a test score, a GPA, or what type of academic transcript do you generally look for with regard to your student athletes coming out of high school?
Sure, and I wouldn't say that we're recruiting guys that they have to have like a 4.0 or close to a 1600 SAT, like some of the perennial like academic like schools that talking to some coaches, it's even challenging to get them in if they're not above a 3.8 GPA. So I wouldn't say our requirements are that high, but one of the things I do look at is if you're below a 3.5 GPA in the recruiting process, it doesn't mean that you wouldn't get into Messiah, but the academics here are going to be a little bit more challenging for you otherwise. And so one of the things, and we kind of had this conversation briefly before we started, but just when we're recruiting student athletes, like we want to make sure that we're recruiting guys that are going to be able and want to stay here for 4 years. And so if the academic rigor is like something that's really like drowning them in some ways, it's going to be really challenging for them to flourish in all aspects. So when you say, is there a there are parameters, there are averages. I don't know off the top of my head what those are, but we definitely have those numbers. But for us, like it is a pretty high academic school in terms of what they go in the classroom, and they leave here well prepared once they leave. And so for us, really recruiting anybody below that, there's great conversations that take place with that, and like, okay, like you took these classes that made it a little bit more challenging for you. You'll be okay here. But usually right around that 3.4, 3.5 mark is usually where we'll start to be like, okay, then we'll start to ask some better questions if they're below that. But in terms of the academic requirements, I don't know those off the top of my head, but it definitely is a high academic school in terms of the rigor and what the faculty here require of our students.
Well, you're a coach that began at Messiah University in 2021, I believe. You've had some experience at Belmont with regard to the Division I landscape. You were a head coach prior to taking over at Messiah at another Division III program. Talk a little bit about, in today's world of college baseball, when you're out recruiting, what is the awareness of Messiah now? Obviously, as a national runner-up, obviously you've had several Rookie of the Year in your conference and Players of the Year. What is the general awareness across, the youth baseball landscape, high school travel baseball, with regard to Messiah University?
Like you said, it definitely picked up a little bit more this past year, where wherever we went out recruiting wearing a Messiah shirt, there was somebody that knew who we are. My first couple years here, from a baseball standpoint, I would say most of the time people have heard of us, and I referred to the athletic success that we've had athletically previously, and all the other sports that we've have here. And so the name is out there in some regards, especially regionally, but nationally, I think that's starting to grow too. That is growing a lot, and now that the landscape of college recruiting has shifted a lot, and the talent level is shifting. I think the Division III schools are becoming more attractive in a place that people are like, well, I'm going to have to look at a place to play if I want to play college baseball. I'm not getting those Division I offers right now, and I want to go to a place that values their athletics and academics, and so I think Messiah is starting to pick up a lot of traction. Obviously, success drives some of that too, but I would say if you're in the Christian world, faith-based world, it's definitely a school that is on people's radars. But if you're not necessarily, like, that's not really one of my things I was looking for right away. Just like for me, I wasn't necessarily searching that right away in my recruiting process. But that's where it's definitely becoming on the radar a lot more, especially regionally, and starting to grow a little bit more nationally for at least the baseball aspect.
One of the intriguing components to your roster is really you do not see a tremendous amount of portal athletes, transfers. You do see a lot of, I saw a few on your roster that had some postgraduate, post-grad school graduates, a lot of high school athletes. So, talk about, as a program, the culture that you build is really for a 4 or 5 year home where you're going to be a part of the fabric of that campus, that program, for a long period of time. You don't generally see a lot of your athletes jumping in and out of the portal necessarily.
Yeah, and it's the landscape of that is pretty wild these days. I think a lot of student athletes are looking at schools of, oh, well, I can go there and compete for 2 years and then look to try to go somewhere else. And you actually see a lot of mid-major Division I school coaches either getting out of the game or going to a different location for this reason. I mean, there's schools that are losing half their roster every year, that are wanting to transfer up to a Power 5 school, or maybe a little bit more of a well-known program, I guess you could say. But for us, it's more than just baseball for us.
Amen.
It's pouring into these guys for 4 to 5 years. Athletically is part of that, but I'm just being used by guys as a vessel of a game of baseball that I love and enjoy being around, to help these guys grow in who they are and their identity in Jesus. And for us, that's a process. That is a journey. That is not a 1 to 2 year process. And one of the things that we've talked about as a program recently was this idea of persistence over perfection.
Oh, I love that.
And for us, like, we want to be able to not be concerned with our failures in terms of, like, man, I can't fail, like, because I have to be perfect. And you see that with so many guys coming in now because of the challenges to get recruited, but also the comparison that takes place across the board, that they have access to what everybody's doing now. And but it's more of, hey, what happens when you do fail? Because in the game of baseball, you're going to fail. There's no question that you're going to fail, unless you're hitting 1,000. Like, you're gonna fail. You're gonna give up a home run. You're gonna make an error. But it's this idea of persistence, that as you go through life, as you go through this journey of baseball, and who you are as an individual, is knowing you're gonna fail. There's gonna be things that happen in your life, and decisions and things that you do that you're like, man, that was a really dumb thing that I did. But we want them to, where do you run to from that? where do you go to from that? And in life, in our faith, is do we run back to the Lord, or do we just dig ourselves deeper? Same thing in baseball. It's like I'd be like, oh, okay, like that's all right. I failed, like, but I went after it. I played hard. I tried to make the best decision I could in real time, and it just didn't work out. And it's, do you quit and allow an 0 for 2 strikeout start to your game, proceed to an 0 for 4 4K day, or do you go 2 for 4 with maybe the game winning hit? And I think that's where the persistence over perfection comes in. And been really heavy on my heart this year with that, of just what does that look like? Because following a year that we had, whether I want to believe it or not, like there is expectations even internally, like it's not even maybe externally, but internally, that we have for our program, that it is easy to get lost in the idea of perfection, when that's not really what got us here in the first place. It's knowing that we don't have to be perfect because we have a God that loves us through that.
One of the things that I always try to explain to parents is, regardless of the level or division of college athletics, obviously we speak a great deal about baseball, but I would love for you to share the process of, as a coach, watching a young man come in at 18 or 19 and then leave as a young adult, that's ready to pursue life, whether that be as an employee or potentially with regard to a spouse or with relationships. Talk a little bit about the growth of college athletics with regard to the evolvement over and above just athletics. College is a balance, relationships, academics, and obviously athletics. I love your perspective on that. We tend to get too excited about performance, as you just alluded to, as opposed to the growth and the transition of a young man as he enters and then ultimately leaves college.
Hmm. I could talk for a whole podcast on this question, but for us, it's, and I was just thinking about this the other day, of just the players that have come through our program, and you see them come in as this person, and by their senior year already, just the other day, I was just kind of in awe of where a player was, uh, of who they were as a person, not just a player, but a person, and was just blown away. Like, man, that is not the same guy that came here, and such an amazing thing to witness and be a part of, and part of that is just being on that journey with them, and as they come into college, it's helping them recognize, one, like in a world that puts so much emphasis on success or money or the right job, is those things are fleeting. It's chasing after the wind. It's things that, yes, they're important, but if used in the wrong way, it can become something that just is leaving you empty at the end of the day. Just like winning a national championship or being national runner up, like there's the trophy that sits in our trophy case is just a trophy collecting dust at this point. And so part of that perspective is helping them find who they are in their journey, and everybody that comes into Messiah obviously knows it's a Christian university, but they all come in different walks of their life into that. Some of them this might be the first time they're exposed to what the gospel looks like, and then um, there's also guys that have like, oh, I've never looked at it that way, or my relationship looks that way. And so for 4 years, they're constantly being poured into and challenged and being reminded of the idea of that the adversity that you face in baseball, the adversity that you face in academics and your social life. Um, you're getting a small glimpse of what that looks like once you leave here too. And if we constantly are dictated, if our emotions are in our life is dictated based off of our circumstances, it's going to be a pretty pretty miserable life. And for us, like, we want to make sure these guys understand that there's so much more to who they're becoming than just how good of a baseball player they're becoming, and that's being selfless. And I'll just kind of share this story. One of the transfers that you mentioned that we did have come in, and we don't use the transfer portal. We want guys that want to be here for 4 years for the right reasons, beyond just the game of baseball. But one of the transfers that did come in because he wanted to be challenged in his faith and pushed was a 2-year starter at a previous school. Came here last year, got a couple starts here and there, and was a big part of the reason we were successful on and off the field. Like, even we had first conference weekend, we had 3 guys get the flu, and he came in and played, helped us sweep the team that beat us in the conference championship the year prior to that. But then didn't really start the rest of the year because everybody stayed healthy. And for the first time in a really long time, there wasn't really a starter that went down for a significant amount of time. And so he was a bench player. He was on the bench. And his selflessness, his encouragement of his teammates, what has made us better is not just our top players being better, it's our floor being better, who are constantly nipping at the heels of those starters, while all the meantime those starters are also putting their arms around those guys that could take their spot and helping them grow too. And so it's nothing that I've done. It's just God working through us, and these players, they're taking ownership of development. And this is where I'll kind of end with this story of seeing that growth take place. Our starting shortstop over the past 2 years would agree that he has had an unhealthy relationship with failure. And he comes up to me after practice earlier this fall, and he goes, "Hey, like, how do I help this player? Because he's a lot like I am." And just hearing that perspective shift, where now he's looking at it of, okay, like, I'm growing still. I'm not even where I'm going to be, and I never will be. It's part of that sanctification process, but I know I can help this person because I see myself in them. And that's what maturity looks like. It's dying to that self. It's having that selflessness. And the reason we were able to make the run that we did was not that we were the most talented team. Yes, we were talented, but it wasn't we were the most talented team, but it was everybody was pulling the rope in the same direction, whether that was guys on the bench, guys on the field, or even guys that didn't get a roster spot for the World Series when we had to cut it down, that were sitting in the bleachers. That's what made us successful, was that selflessness that took place from the bottom up. And that's if it wasn't for those guys, we're not there. And that goes to the rest of your life. Like, as you leave here, if you're constantly absorbed in yourself, it's gonna be a really fleeting life. But when you can look outwardly and be able to serve others and show the love of Christ to others through that, it's just, man, just what a transformation takes place within the hearts of these guys through their 4 years here.
And I really think there's a message there. Being a teammate means celebrating in others' success, and being able to be there to lift them up when they have challenges in their life. And that's really the hallmark of a good program and a team culture. And on that topic, I always try to get parents to understand, or particularly student athletes, well, I don't want to go to that school. They're already recruiting another catcher, or they have two catchers on their roster. Talk a little bit about college athletics, regardless of sport. They're always recruiting the best possible talent. Obviously, you want the best athletes every year in your recruiting class. But talk a little bit. Competition is not always just external; it's internal, and you have to accept that in every aspect of your life, and understand that each day you should be striving to be the best version of yourself. Don't fear competition, but
Mm.
really get excited by it and use it as a way of becoming a more complete and total athlete, not just a baseball player.
Yeah, that's so good. We had a good friend of mine, Dave Franco. He was the mental
Yep.
performance coach for the Rangers for a while. He worked with us last year and has had great conversations with me. But one of the things that he would constantly say to our guys is, "Do you see it as a challenge or a threat?" And those that see it as a threat are the ones that usually start to pout or put themselves in a corner. But the ones that see it as a challenge are like, "Great, let's go! Like, I want to be somewhere where I'm going to be pushed to be better." And when that takes place, there's just such a healthy competition that takes place. Like, guys are rooting for each other who are also competing for the same spot.
Right.
It's a crazy thing in our society that we try to get a level up on somebody or try to manipulate a situation because we want to maybe get past that person and try to take that shortcut, where our guys, for the most part, and the ones that do it well, not everybody does it well all the time, but are the ones that want the person in front of them to be at their best because they want to beat them out when they're at their best, not get a spot or get a chance because they failed. And so for us, one of the things that we told our guys, it's just like, I'm watching these inter squads right now. We genuinely feel like we have two teams in our inter squad series right now that could go and compete to be in the playoffs in our conference, and our roster's split right now. And so with that being said, if one of the things we tell every one of our recruits when they come in here is, one, you're going to be challenged to be the best that you can be, but also, is this somewhere you still want to be, even if you don't get a shot to play your first 2 to 3 years? Because that is the reality of it. We've had, every year we have a junior who all of a sudden just pops into the lineup, and teams are like, where did this guy come from? Because he was sitting behind two other guys that were really good for 2 years, who, when he could have started somewhere else. And I think that comes down to where do you run to in adversity? Or are you just going to run away and transfer? Or are you going to want to stay somewhere that's going to push you and challenge you? And so our inner squads right now, one of the things of playing a team that like in the national championship with Wisconsin Whitewater was they were facing their guys every day. So they were being sharpened every day. Our pitchers coming in, our pitchers throwing in our inner squads, they're getting mistakes that are being hammered right now because they're going through a really good lineup, no matter which side they're on. And it's making them better. Like, okay, I need to make a better pitch. Just like our hitters are facing better pitching every day. And it's a snowball effect every day because they're being surrounded by great players every day who are now getting better. And I think that's where you start to see the consistency come in with great teams, is that there's great players challenging each other every day, not just when they go and play good teams. Like it doesn't just happen when we go and play a top 10 team against Endicott or Hopkins. It happens every day in our program. And so that's where we want guys that are going to push the starters, but also guys that are going to be selfless enough to be okay with maybe not starting right away. And we had a player last year, he was hitting 400 with 3 or 4 home runs off the bench, was a pinch hitter, got a couple starts here and there, and it played a big role in who we were as a team, but wasn't starting every day as a 400 hitter with multiple home runs, which is not an easy thing to do. Yet he was the most selfless teammate you would have ever known, and is in the front runner to be one of one of our starters this year at a couple positions. So I think that's what we look for in the recruiting process, and for parents to understand of like, hey, it's Division III, but there's still a high probability you're not going to get a chance to play right away. And because these guys have been developing for 3 to 4 years in our program, and this is their first year here, it takes time. It takes patience. Is really hard, but it's something that you have to be willing to be okay with.
My last question for you, Phil, and I think that this is on the minds of all student athletes and parents, but I would like for you to offer a piece of advice for, the 27, 28, and 29 class as they're beginning to prepare not only for their high school season, but whether we agree or not, most high school athletes are always forward thinking with regard to college. How can they best prepare? If you could give some advice to the freshman through junior class currently in high school on how to best prepare to become a college athlete, what are some of the pieces of advice that you would offer to that?
Yeah, definitely have a few. I mean, physically is just keep getting as physically as strong as you can. I think that's one where you see the biggest gap as guys coming in. But for us, like as we're recruiting guys, we're looking beyond just their ability to play the game of baseball. Um, Recruiting, I used to tell people that there's a place for everybody in college baseball about 4 or 5 years ago. I don't think that's the case anymore. There are really good
Bingo.
players that are not getting a spot to play right now that are still really good college players. And so for us, there's not always a big separation between that. And so therefore we're looking for the guys, all right, what separates them? Most of the time it's how good of a teammate and how high of a character person that they are. And that's where one of the things that I would suggest for guys is work your butt off to get ready to play college baseball, but be where your feet are and be the best teammate you can while you're doing that. That's what that's what changed our program. That's what allowed our guys to have great players who weren't playing right away push the ones that were, because they were selfless and they learned how to be a great teammate before they even got here. And so for us, that's what I would say from my perspective. And every coach is going to look for something different. That's the crazy thing about college baseball, is one coach may see this about a player, the other one sees this. And for us, I'm looking at some of the intangibles that are hard to measure. But one way you can measure that is watching them during a high school game. How do they treat their teammates? Even in travel ball, how hard do they play? How hard do they push their teammates? How excited do they still get for their teammates in a world that starts to become self-absorbed with, I need to get success, I need to get my hits, so this college coach will recruit me. Where if, for us, we're looking at what kind of teammate are they? How are they treating others? What do they look like in the dugout? How do they handle failure? And so that would be the most important thing for me, is if you're a good player and you're good enough to play college baseball, we're looking for that separator. And usually character and how good of a teammate you are is usually one of those big separators for us.
Well, I want to remind parents and student athletes, you can find all things related to Messiah University, Messiah Baseball on the Baseball Blue Book app. encourage you to download, create your profile, put your video, your transcripts, things of that, so that college coaches can begin to, evaluate your video. And Phill, I want to say thank you so much for taking the time to join me today. I truly appreciate your time. I wish you continued success and getting over that hump and getting that, that kind of place with regard to removing runner-up and saying national champion. I know that you'll be there one day, and I appreciate you taking the time today.
No, thanks for having me on, Walter. This was great.
Athletes, electrolytes matter, but you got to choose the right electrolytes. If you look at the sugars, 34 grams, the dyes, all the things that's not good for you in this product, this is a hype product. If you look here at the electrolytes made by Corvive, it's got the right amount of magnesium, sodium, potassium, zinc, kosher salt. It's got vitamin C to help with the immune system. I'm telling you, if you want to stay on the field, you want to perform at your best, you want to recover well, this is the product that you need to choose to fuel your body as an athlete.